Remember the Democrat Rhode Island State Senator twerking upside down and posting it to TikTok? This is apparently the Democrats' best, but really, what all of this highlights is a generation of attention-hungry children who never grew up. And under Joe Biden, the woke mob left is in charge, and they're making America a laughingstock. Look at this. A parent forcing her child, who appears not to want any part of it, forcing him to watch radical LGBT activists. That's right, you guessed it, twerk during Pride celebrations. What's with the twerk thing? Not only is this the moral decay in America, but there's clearly a twerking epidemic, and the left-wing mob is doing everything they can to keep the twerking going and corrupt our nation's youth. And of course, destroy faith. That's the left-wing plan. Right now in America, belief in God has fallen to the lowest level since the Gallup survey started back in 1944. And it's fallen almost among adults and young adults, and you guessed it, Democrats. They've abandoned faith, replacing it with the Church of Liberalism, worshiping party and the state. So what follows all this? A nation with no moral compass.
Man, the connections made through that just minute there of Eric Bolling of Newsmax is mind-boggling. So we've gone from twerking epidemic. There's an epidemic of twerking because epidemics are a thing now that they believe in. There's a twerking epidemic, then turns into a lack of belief in God. Then it also turns into police fighting folks in a subway somewhere. Because all of this is.
But did you notice who it was? Did you see who it was?
That was fighting?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I couldn't tell who that was fighting.
It was the promotion of what Charlie Kirk has done and what others in the right-wing circles have done, portraying the biggest problem as black on black crime.
Oh, well,
it was
a
total dog whistle.
There was pride parades, but then it's black folks at that pride that he's pointing out because we're talking about twerking. Which, by the way, I'm not sure. Maybe if you want to check out any social media there, Eric. White people twerk too.
Not well, anyway, but we try.
Let's go through more of this because he made a full-on argument against the twerking epidemic. Well, that particular state senator there from Rhode Island did respond, talk about how she has no regrets for doing what she does because she's a human being and a grown adult and can do whatever damn well she pleases. Let's watch what she had to say.
We need more leaders who are gonna shake things up, literally. We need more leaders who are gonna fight for the people and let them eat cake.
Tiara Mack has sent fragile right-wingers into a tizzy.
You never heard of Tiara Mack? Tiara Mack 2024.
Vote Senator Mack.
Tiara Mack made this video over the holiday weekend. Now we had to blur it out.
Head in the sand, twerking.
Some people lost their talking about my body. They never cared about my body when I was fighting for body autonomy, when I was fighting for the right to abortion, when I was fighting for right to housing for my community members. They never cared about my body when I was fighting as a black queer person to have my rights respected by my legislators. No one cared about my body. Not until it was twerking upside down. I lead with joy, authenticity, and liberation. They cannot control our bodies, and they can't stop our joy.
I do think it's about time for folks that are being targeted by these conservative pundits and politicians to actually take that energy. It happened just yesterday or past few days when it came to Matt Gaetz attacking this 19-year-old activist on Twitter, and then she turned it and used it for benefit of actual Americans rather than the hate that he was continuing to spew. In this particular case, I like that this candidate or this state senator here point out, you're gonna talk about my body? Let's talk about my body and how you had issues with me controlling it before this. But once you see a twerk, then this is a problem. More details, because again, Eric Bolling talked about how the left, their agenda is to take us from church. How the left's agenda is to take us away from church, because everyone went to church before. But let's look at this anyway, because according to the Center for Study of Global Christianity, division is the main cause as to why people attending church have dropped. Now, this division is causing people to abandon Christian churches. Just last year, this one particular person who was talking about it, Barna, found that the share of practicing Christians has dropped nearly in half since 2000. Gallup recently reported that US church membership fell below 50% for the first time in 8 decades. In a 2017 Lifeway research survey, a majority, 66% of Americans aged 23 or 30, younger folks, said they stopped attending church on a regular basis for at least a year after turning 18. Among their top reasons was that church members seemed divisive, judgmental, or hypocritical. We've seen a lot of that. And lastly, Pastor Andy Stanley of the Atlanta area recently cited the top 5 reasons that people leave the church. On the list was that they had a bad church experience where church members prioritized or defended viewpoints over people. Or maybe they raped children in their church, which is what happened. Or they groomed children up until they were 17, 18 years old before it was exposed to what they did. Or they stole people's money, which we're gonna get to later in the show. All these, or what I've also read before, Rick, there was this full-on long article, multiple accounts of people who grew up in the church. And then growing up in the church, they discovered this has gotten very political. They're talking about hatred towards certain people. They're saying we should vote a certain way. They're openly endorsing certain candidates for office. This isn't church, and they're leaving. Church is the reason why people are leaving church, not twerking.
Right. Look, I know we got to go to the next story. I'm going to make this very, very quick. I find it ironic that someone like Eric Bolling would complain, or as my heap say, kvetch, about a woman twerking, when this is a man who allegedly sent unsolicited genitalia photos to employees at Fox News. You really want to talk about a woman twerking? Also, what goes through your mind when you're like, yeah, and then you hit send? Like that's crazy to me. And like everything he said is a lie, obviously. But look, I think Eric Bolling's best moment, truly, aside from like the All Lives Matter stuff and like the oh God, is when Kendrick Lamar sampled him on DNA and eviscerated him. That was his best moment. And I hope he's proud of it, because this legacy, he's going to a network that will probably be defunct very soon.
Oh, we'll see. I mean, like OAN is already on the skids.